to this final plenary session at this, the fourth EMES International Research Conference. There are a few changes in the program concerning the panelists since Taco Brandsen. We just knew that he had to leave due to some family issues he had to take care of. Also, and that I don't know why, Isabelle Hillenkamp didn't show up for the panel yet. I hope she is not lost somewhere at the university trying to find the right location. Exactly. That is what I meant. I'm sure she will be here very soon. But this is the final plenary session. We have learned a lot during these days, as I hope you have experienced. EMES is not about exporting approaches, research understandings of how to investigate and conceptualize social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, and the third sector. On the contrary, it is an invitation for an open and mutual dialogue on these very important issues. During the conference, I have attended panels targeting exchange of knowledge from the south to the north. I've engaged in dialogues with colleagues, scholars from East Asia who are a bit insecure about the models, if they are really, when we are showing the models and definitions and approaches, whether they are a bit too static and not grasping all dynamics, which is in fact, of course, impossible with models, but still very good comments. In this final plenary session, we have exactly invited to explore the new frontiers in research in social enterprise from various perspectives and parts of the world. With this, I would like to invite our first speaker, our first panelist, Professor Marilla Veronese from UNISINOS in the state Rio Grande do Sul in southern Brazil, to give her intervention. And as I have understood, you have chosen to do it according to the title of the conference. The panelists will all have at the maximum of 15 minutes, and I hope a few will speak a bit shorter so that we will have a few questions and comments in the end. Marilla, please.
So I'd like to thank Lars and everybody on EMES for this inviting. It's an honor for me to be here. I learned so much from all of you during the conference, so I'm here to share some ideas, and especially this idea that Lars just mentioned, that it's about exchanging knowledge. Well, I named my presentation with the question, if not for profit, for what and how? I think I'm a little obsessed by this question. Everybody is, and we should be. It's a good thing. So I'll start examining practice, from the practice, Examining a good practice first, involving participatory ways with the community, not for it. It's the first message. I think we don't have to work for the communities, but with the communities and social movements in their interests, which they choose. And then I'll talk about a not so good kind of practice, and finally reflect a little on the practice. The first practice is very inspiring. It's a project conducted by Italian NGO Trade Union Institute for Development Cooperation in partnership with Brazilian organizations, the Progressive Catholic Church, the Dioceses of Alto Solimões, and other organizations. State of Amazonia, Brazil, the rainforest. And the project, called Sustainable Development in Brazilian Amazon Border, is developing with 20 indigenous and riverine communities, a lot of different actions. I don't have time to detail these actions for you, but I like to mention that some of them is really the most beautiful project I've ever seen in my life, more horizontal one. So I want to talk a little about. It's in line with their lifestyle, their local culture, and the respect of the environment. It's based on a concept called in Quechua, Suma Causai, Bem Viver, Buen Vivir, Well Living. So the project is inspired on these concepts from the South, the epistemic South. Both concepts, Suma Causai and Suma Camania, of the Quechua and Aymara tradition that Amazon Indians share, is characterized by some principles. First of them, the relationship of the whole as the life force by which it exists. Complementarity, in the sense that no being or action exists just for itself in isolation, but always in coexistence with its equal and opposite too. Reciprocity, such that distinct beings mold one another, and thus an exertion on one side is balanced by an exertion of the same magnitude on the other side. More than simply living well, it is a matter of coexisting, of living as a community. Well, these concepts are very old, and we try to build something probably that already exists in these communities. So the red point shows you where the project is being developed. And the most representative action that is being taken is the farmer-to-farmer program in family farming. It's about creating sustainable process of communitarian self-management as regards the production of income, cash crop and exchange, and non-monetary income, self-consumption. Following the principles of solidarity economy, they are very close to their own traditions of living. This program wants to train and support a group of promoters so they can be able to disseminate and exchange in their communities for other people. And for this reason, the communitarian native seed bank has been created, starting from the belief that native seeds don't have to belong to multinational companies, Monsanto, for instance, but to farmers who should be able to control their production and distribution. So the communities are now free of the government and the big companies for seed supply. And I was there, and I see how the coordinators are totally back, The technicians are all locals, and the indigenous communities really participate and really debate and really decide. So it's a very good practice to reflect on. Now let's examine what could be considered not so good practice, or how not to do. It's about privatizing public housing against poor black community interests. Lars, could you get me some water? The process is described in this very interesting book, Driven from New Orleans, How Nonprofits Betray Public Housing and Promote Privatization. Thanks. By John Arena, that is a sociologist of New York University. And I just have a very quick resume here. Non-profit organizations became actively involved in a planning effort to privatize and downsize the community that would drastically reduce the number of affordable apartments. Arena argues that the key to understanding New Orleans public housing transformation from public to private is the co-optation of activists into a government and foundation-funded non-profit complex. The needs of Black, poor, community housing residents were ignored. White developers and the city's Black political elite embraced this newfound political realism because it legitimized the regressive policies of removing poor people and massively downsizing public housing and affordable housing in order, to create a new racially integrated mixed-income community. That was the discourse. We can see the true nature and the true cost of reforms promoted by an alliance on a neoliberal government, non-profit organizations, community activists, and powerful real estate interests. So my first thought about this, it's a political issue. There is a political question here. So we should maybe reflect something on this. Well, the first point that I reflected from the first experience, the good practice, is learning from the South. Lars mentioned it, we are working on it, and it's not so easy to build. But don't think about the geographic South. Think about the epistemic South, like a metaphor of the human suffering caused by exploitation, colonialism, that produced the poverty and the inequality we face now, especially in my country, in Latin America. So, social and solidarity economy can learn from the metaphoric South, and not just the South, Latin America, or Asia, Africa, but also the South within the North, because there is a South within the North and there is a North within the South. So there are total dialectic relationships, and we have to, try to understand and try to deal with this North and this South within our own communities. Communities already have a knowledge on solidarity and sustainability, as I told in the first experience. So we need to consider it in order to construct the ecology of knowledge, a concept from sociologist Boaventura de Souza Santos, avoiding the waste of experience. This richness, this wealth of experiences can't be wasted. The second point is politicization of social and solidarity economy, that I reflect on the second experience that I consider a bad practice. Milton Friedman once said that democracy can hinder the freedom of the market. If people demand social rights, this could mess up with the freedom. This situation can lead us for a kind of social fascism, even if we have political democracy in our country. So, the social and solidarity economy, the field in Latin America, made an option for an emancipatory political project. People are seeking recognition and redistribution, social justice and equality. And we can see around the world civil society movements in Turkey, Egypt, USA, Brazil, Europe. People are rising and protesting against the situation. Should we choose a side? Should we be neutral? Should we work on good and possible alliances, negotiation with different social and political actors, or what? Remembering that ethical values demand making choices, political ones, we believe. So this is some images on the protest in Brazil. I was there. Sorry for the inconvenience. We changed in Brazil. Many people on the streets, as you can see. And these are not just student or middle class protests. This is Osasco, one of the poor suburbs of São Paulo, where the workers who suffer most from high bus fares and public transportation live, because it was the starting of the protest in Brazil, the high prices of public transportation. And in several cities, my city, Porto Alegre, for instance, we had this victory. The prices got low because of the protest. A V-mask factory working overtime. And this one is to show the plurality of the people on the streets, that the Brazilian media wants to turn into vandals at first. The media in Brazil try to, manipulate the process. So this young dad took her baby, and she's obviously not a vandal. And this is just how to show there are some kind of globalization of the solidarity and the seek of justice. There is this Brazilian cartoonist, Carlos Latuf, and he's becoming famous because his work is totally free on the internet. And here is the first one. The drawing is about police violence. That was something terrible in Brazilian protest. The boy is thinking, without violence, and the police says, with violence. And this is some Latuf's charts, cartoon, used in Egypt, and many other countries is using his work and getting in touch by social networks and using. So there's a kind of demand, global demand for justice and solidarity. So I think it's a matter of going on politics. To be continued. The future of these movements remains totally uncertain, especially in my country that I know how difficult things are. The field of social economy needs to work not for the communities, I insist, but with them. Not for the social movements, but with them. We should try to learn from the oppressed, the epistemic South, remember, that it exists within the North, co-creating new language, or new knowledge, and new languages too. It is important to take a protagonist role in the political struggle for social change. I already finished it, yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Marilla. I think everybody can hear me. We would like to invite a few questions now to Marilla, if there are any. Please pose your questions briefly and not as long comments. And if not, we will continue.
Okay.
This one?
Oh, there's one there. Yeah.
Yes, please. Speak up.
I'm Lisa Dakanay from the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia. I'd like to ask, are you therefore espousing more South-North collaborative research? Because we're talking here about frontiers, new frontiers in social enterprise research.
Yeah, I don't fully understand. Could you repeat, please?
No, because you're talking about learning from the South.
Okay.
So since we're discussing new frontiers for social enterprise research,
Okay.
The conclusion I'm getting from your talk, therefore, if we relate it to the plenary discussion, is the need for more collaborative research between North and South.
Yeah, of course. And we are engaged in this kind of thing a lot. Well, not only from academia, colleagues from academia, with research, with training, with teaching, with, incubation of enterprises. That was the theme of our panel this morning, and we exchanged a lot of knowledge on it. But of course, there, in my country, in the whole Latin America, There are such high levels of inequality that we have to exchange knowledge every day, because communities in Brazil, poor communities, black communities, indigenous communities, lives in so different ways from medium class. The inequality is so high that we are, daily engaged on these exchanges with all of them through projects and through public policy and so on.
Thank you very much, Marilla.
Thank you, Lars.
And now I would like to invite Professor Kam-Tong from Hong Kong Polytechnic University to enter the podium and deliver your address to the audience.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to be here. It's my third time participating in the EMES Conference, and it's somewhat like homecoming, meeting old friends, and also making new friends. I think the topic that I want to share is the experience in East Asia. And actually, I am speaking on behalf of our consortium. The topic or the theme for this conference is, if not for profit, but for what and why. And I hope I can respond to some of the questions by using when, who, for what, and how. Talking about when, about 7 years ago, we started a comparative analysis of social enterprises in the Greater China with Professor Wang, Professor Guan from Taiwan. And at that time, we tried to examine the development of social enterprises in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and also in Greater China, mainland China. At that time, we went to Guangzhou and also Shanghai because of the economic development was quite good there. So we tried to examine. We tried to send a questionnaire, and also we also have quite a number of case studies examining different types of social enterprises in different regions of Greater China. We are very fortunate. We can have quite a good database so that it provides a very solid foundation for our understanding about the topology in the Chinese community. Later on, who? In the year 2007, for the first EMES conference in Barcelona, Spain, we met Professor Divoni at that time, and he's very kind, very supportive, and he also initiated a small project for the comparative analysis of social enterprises in East Asia. So at that time, apart from Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China, we also have new partners from South Korea and also Japan. They work very hard, and they keep on bugging us for providing more and more information, a lot of data, and also they even work very hard because after 2 years, they consolidate a very presentative, very wonderful framework. And actually, I think some of you have seen that framework 2 days ago during Professor Divoni's presentation, the triangle one. So at that time, we are very impressed because I think such framework provide very solid kind of theoretical orientation and also the conceptual framework for our work in the later days. Since then, for what? We developed our research team, and also we work with Professor Guan and also Professor Wang. We have subsequent survey in the year 2010 and also 2013, and we just finished our data analysis just 2 months ago, and we present at this conference. So in the 3 studies in the past 7 years, we have developed quite a number of questions and also indicators in the following 6 areas, including the policy and also the legal framework. And we have subsequently done an analysis on that. We also examined some of the issues relating to the financing issue, the marketing channel, and also the funding sources. After that, 2 years ago, we started another project on governance. And we tried to examine different governance structures and also decision-making process of social enterprises in different regions. And it's still ongoing. In our questionnaire, we also have some questions relating to human resources and also social entrepreneurship. Then, just half a year ago, we also start to initiate whether we should have some sort of a panel for the cross-sectorial kind of partnership. So we have a panel presentation just this morning. We have 5 papers from each country or from each cities. And then just a month ago in Taiwan, we have a conference focusing on social impact. And we have done some sort of basic analysis. So for example, in terms of the topology, you can see based on our past research, we have developed an initiative, our initial framework in examining the topology of social enterprises in Hong Kong as well as in Taiwan. For example, based on different nature, such as work integration, community-based, or social entrepreneurship. In Hong Kong, we have what we call the WISE model, the subsidiary model, the free market model, or joint venture models. Similarly, in Taiwan, we also have the work integration model, affirmative business, community-based model as well. In terms of the governance, I heard 2 days ago the EMES framework talking about participatory governance. And also in our study, we based on Lars' model, Lars' theory on democratic governance as well. We try to test. But it seems in reality, in Hong Kong and also Taiwan situation, we have different results. It seems to us it's not democratic, it's not participatory, rather it is executive-driven, or it is board, and many of them, they're elites, or they're volunteer-driven. And more importantly, because many projects, they get money from the government, and it seems it is very much policy-driven, very much dictated by the government regulation. A lot of regulation you have to follow. So it sounds very interesting. It sounds very interesting. In terms of the cross-sectorial partnership, we also try to examine what we call the tripartite or cross-sectorial partnership. We also try to examine the involvement of the business sector. We can see there are different levels of involvement. What we call philanthropic partnership, that is very minimal. The business sector just want to donate money, don't bug on me. I just give you the money, that's it. But some business corporation, they're very supportive in some sense, what we call collaborative partnership. Not only they donate money or service, they even collaborate with you. They will contribute volunteer service, participate in your decision making. And similarly, we also identify, of course, rare cases, but yet what we call strategic partnership. Because sometimes it seems the business sector help you, but vice versa. We, civil society organization, also provide valuable service to those business sectors. So what I call strategic partnership. Relating to social impact, we also develop some concepts based on our case studies, what we call the 4E framework. The 4E stands for the first E, enhancement of quality of life, second E, employment creation, third E, empowerment, and lastly, because we need to keep 4E, so exclusion prevention, and essentially it is social inclusion. So we can see, based on a wide range of case study, we can construct some sort of social impact contributed by those social enterprises in Hong Kong and also in Taiwan. So how? Based on all these research activities, actually we also have some sort of what we call the Asian Network and also the academic exchanges. So in the year 2010, in Taiwan, we have our first regional conference focusing on convergency and divergency, the development of S in East Asia. And then just half a year ago in China, we have our second regional conference focusing on social enterprise and social innovation. And we're going to organize the third one in South Korea next year. And the topic is not decided yet. And we hope in 2016 and also 2018, I hope we are still not retired yet, we will have another 2 conferences in Hong Kong and also in Japan. And also, we also, as a collective, we have quite a lot of joint publication. For example, thanks to Bob, we have our first joint publication in Social Enterprise Journal in 2011. We have a symposium on social enterprise in East Asia just last year, and leading to a publication in the Hong Kong Journal of Social Work is forthcoming. And also we have a book. I think you've seen a copy outside. We also, based on the presentation last month, leading to the Journal of Community Development is going to publish yet. And also, during the lunchtime, we are also talking about how to consolidate our 5 papers together for the joint publication in the journal later on. So I want to, based on our journey of experience, and share with you about my personal reflection. I will focus on 4 major areas. The first one is about the paradigm. That is from research to re-search. Second is about the level. That is from micro to macro. The third is about the orientation relating to from unidisciplinary to multidisciplinary. And the last one regarding the outcome. That is from local to global or regional. I know the time is short, so I just want to keep it brief. Relating to the orientation and the paradigm, we have heard in these few days there are 3 major schools or 3 major approaches. Okay, the earned income approach, the social innovation approach, or the outcome approach, so-called, and also the EMES approach. But it seems to us all these 3 major schools of thought or 3 major approaches, would that be adapted or adopted in the East Asian context, or do we have some sort of what we call the 4th approach? I don't know, because many of these concepts partially can be applied, but vice versa, there will be some sort of confliction or contradiction in applying those concepts. I don't want to put a square in a circle. It's not good. So maybe in the future, in terms of the paradigm, do we have some sort from search to re-search? Second, from micro to macro. It seems to me, in our past experience, we have quite a lot of different case studies, but I think there's also a need for our so-called macro analysis at the institutional and also at the organizational level. But the point is how to conceptualize, how to theorize. Also, I think based on our presentation in these few days, we learned quite a lot. We want to inform the government for so-called policy decisions or policy choices. But similarly, I think, do we need to fulfill such a micro and macro link? Do we need to inform our practitioners relating to their service, their decisions in their daily practice? And even, I'm thinking, maybe in the future summer school, not only we are catering for the PhD students, maybe we can cater for those practitioners. We need, or do we need more academics? On one hand, they're practitioners, but actually, we hope they can be a refractive practitioners. That means they can use action research to be more refractive. And this kind of micro and macro link, I think, is very important. Instead of we're talking high in the air, but we cannot ground on the earth. Third, relating to unidisciplinary to multidisciplinary. I know social enterprise is a hybrid nature, but at the same time, I think we should have a hybrid knowledge base to understand this hybrid nature. I heard quite a lot of presentation using economic perspective, public administration perspective, but do we have some sort of a hybrid knowledge base, hybrid theory to understand this hybrid nature? I think that's important. I'm glad to know yesterday I bought a book using a new term, transdisciplinary. And I think this kind of transdisciplinary approach will be very important for our future education as well as research study for this hybrid nature. And lastly, I think from local to global, we understand social origin is very important, but at the same time, we also understand the importance of knowledge transfer. So the word globalization maybe become one of the major goals for our future studies. That is, rooted in the local context, but also we have a global outlook. So how? I think I will advocate for the 3C. The first C is connect. So come to our 5th, 6th EMES conference. Second C, communicate, present papers, communicate, discuss. And the last C, contribute. Join the research meeting tomorrow, right? So that we can contribute, we can try to understand the other part of the world, because we are one dream, one world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kam-Tong, for sharing these research results and your reflections also of more conceptual character. You are pushing the boundaries of our knowledge, and that is exactly what research and science is made for. A few questions, if any. Please phrase them rather shortly. Yes, can you speak loud or?
Actually, the sample size is small at that time. In the 2006, actually in China, there's no such idea of social enterprise. We visit a number of what they call welfare enterprise. When we visit Shanghai, we learned that at that time, there should be about 76 welfare enterprises. But eventually, from the list, they mentioned to us there were only 24, and many of them died out. We visit one welfare enterprise. Funny, I will tell you, it's a flower shop near the funeral home, and they can survive because a lot of people died at that time.
Thank you very much, Professor. Our final panelist is Professor Isabelle Hillenkamp from Geneva University, and I would like to invite you to give you your speech now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. It's a honor and a pleasure for me to be here. And in addition to Marilla's and Kam-Tong's contribution, I have been asked to reflect on the adequacy of the concept of social enterprise to describe social organizations in context of informality in the South. And this, of course, is an important issue given the aims of this year's conference to provide a truly worldwide perspective on social enterprise, and given the participation of several scholars working in this context. So I will try to contribute myself to this issue based basically on three sources. First, my own research in Latin America, mainly Bolivia and Mexico. Second, an edited book called Securing Livelihoods, Informal Economy Practices and Institutions, forthcoming at Oxford University Press. And third, the preparation of an international comparative project on social and solidarity economy. I would like to emphasize that what I'm going to share with you is much more hypothesis and I hope inputs for discussions on the result of a systematic research. It's not the same case as the impressive account given by Kam-Tong just now. So I will raise 2 points. First, plural economy as common ground for analyzing social enterprises and social organization in context of informality, plurality. And second, variations in actors and political projects and differences between social enterprise and other approaches as illustrated just before by Marilla's contribution and social and solidarity economy. So first, I would say that one major advancement allowed by scholarship on social enterprises has been the recognition of the plurality of resources involved in the economic activity. While classical management and economic theory would focus on market resources only, social enterprise literature, especially the European literature coming from the tradition of third sector and social economy, has shed light on the significance of non-market resources, redistribution coming from the state, reciprocity arising from family and the community in complement to market resources. And I think that this view is very important too when speaking of informal economy, in order to recognize that informal economy is not just about poverty, not just about the lack of capital, and not just about a pre-capital sector trying to somehow evolve towards a model of a capitalist enterprises. Recent literature on informal economy very much show that informal economy is foremost about vulnerability, about the lack of security in job, in employment and social protection. Informality is linked to vulnerability, and in order to deal with vulnerability, people do mobilize plural principles of economy. They are not only relying on the market, but they very much embed their economic practice into social relations, which is increasingly analyzed in terms of a plurality of principles of organization, in particular, not only, but in particular, using the framework of Karl Polanyi and the principles of economic integration. So I think it's an important convergence and a way to see that social organizations in context of vulnerability share this very important recognition of the plurality of resources and principles of economic organization. But, and that's my second point, we have to go further. We cannot just stay at the level of organizations. We have to consider the political projects and the broader paradigms in which actors in those social organizations are involved. And here, I have a very broad hypothesis. As I said in introduction, it's input for discussion, but I believe that we can identify 3 broad different configurations in context of informality. I would say that a first configuration, which is illustrated in particular, not only, but in particular by Southeast Asia, is a context where indeed social enterprise understood as partnership, as alliances between different stakeholders, between formal businesses, between informal social organization and the public sector is arising, which certainly can be connected to the debate on social enterprise in Europe and in North America. But at the same time, it's important to recognize that the role of public policy is absolutely different. That's how I understand Kam-Tong contribution and his point on policy-driven organizations, and indeed the situation appears radically different from North America in particular, where the approach is much more disconnected, or at least with weak connection to public policies. And there we have a very strong emphasis on public policy, as shown on the case of East Asia and also on the case on Southeast Asia. For instance, in 2012, last year, a social enterprise act has been passed in Thailand. There are discussions, I believe, in the Philippines too, for Carta Magna for informal workers and for social enterprises, and there are other cases. So we have this differentiation. At the same time, I'm taking South Asia to illustrate this case, but of course this configuration is also present, although to a fewer extent, in Latin America and in Africa. And also it must be said that in Southeast Asia, for the discussion I could have in this conference, I understand that maybe there is a strong focus on those social enterprises as partnerships between formal and informal, but that's maybe only the visible part of the iceberg, and informal social organization being a much broader part of it. But then a second configuration can be identified, which is very well exemplified by the case of Latin America, on which Marilla has already elaborated, and which is characterized by a much higher degree of politicization. Thank you, Lars. You're a fellow to me. So I would say, in continuation to Maria's contribution, that social organization there must be understood as part of popular and solidarity economy. They much more result from self-organization of popular sectors, supported of course by local international NGOs, and in some cases by public policies, but it's not the same configuration of alliances between different stakeholders of private business and informal economy. Also, it must be said that the issue of emancipation, that the class and racial conflict is very present between so-called indigenous and black descendant popular sector and the white business owners, which explain that those alliances are not easily in those contexts. So here you understand that the scholarship on social enterprise, when focused on social mission, on internal governance and the enterprise level, partly fails to capture the dynamic, the more political dynamic which is happening in Latin America. It starts from a long tradition of social contestation, and in the context of the left-wing governments of the last decade, there has been a strong bottom-up politicization, which has led to very important changes in policies, even though, as Maria said, starting from Brazil, there is still a long way to come. But just to name a few, there has been the very important policy in Brazil, starting from Lula's first government in 2003, and then in Bolivia, the case of the plurinational strategy for solidarity economy and fair trade under Evo Morales was a strategy for 2010. In Ecuador, the law on popular economy in Rafael Correa's government, and last year in Nicaragua, the creation of the Ministry of Family, Community, Cooperative and Associative Economy under Daniel Ortega's presidency. So it's a very different configuration. And lastly, we have a third configuration which can be exemplified by the case of Africa, probably sub-Saharan Africa, where I would say that informal social organizations are ubiquitous, be it in the form of credit and saving association, of women's groups, of cooperatives, of networks, of old and new communities, etc. And also formal, informal alliances are changing rapidly in some countries, and new forms of entrepreneurship are appearing. I would assume that social organization in the informal economy appear mostly as a result of self-organization of popular sectors. I would assume that the model of social enterprise as formal, informal alliances is only very incipient in Africa, and that kind of informal social organization is still the dominant form. Also in this context, the level of politicization and more broadly the state and the relation between those social organizations and the state are very weak And again, I feel that maybe social enterprise literature asking, well, seeking to extend to those contexts must be very aware of this aspect. So, as a conclusion, informality definitively represents a frontier for research and practice on social enterprise, but not one that should be either an obstacle to exchange, nor one that should be simply ignored through a homogenizing approach. I think that actors, political project and institutional contexts differ broadly between the region, and a deeper understanding of social, economic and political history is an essential prerequisite for an informed research and exchange. Thank you very much. Yes, sure. Right.
Thank you very, very much, Isabelle. Will there be a question or two? We'll see. Yes, there is. Either you shout or you wait until you get a mic. It will take a time, so maybe you just speak up.
Yes. Oh my God, Lars, do you want to say something to Scandinavian colleagues? No. So Lars has no solidarity to Scandinavian colleagues, so I have to say a word. No, but basically I believe that this is only this session which is on new frontiers, so maybe it's also a result of the thematic of this last session, but more seriously, I'm obviously not a specialist of Europe, but I believe that there is still many domains to research in this area. I think our point was much more on exchange than on saying that all the emphasis of future research must lay on resource regions other than Europe. Okay. So we look forward to exchanging with you.
Thank you very much, Isabelle. Is there one more?
Yes.
Okay. From
quick question. What is your opinion about the role between informality and technology in the future of social enterprise and social innovation?
Well, of course, the technological debate is linked to informality. I think we need appropriate technology. I think social enterprise, social organizations must help in this long way, 20, 30 years ago that we're speaking of appropriate technology. But I think it's maybe the organized, the type of organization that can help into this way. I don't know if I'm clear. I mean, we have had a very normative debate at the beginning on the necessity for the informal enterprises to become like the capitalist sector organization and to acquire capital, and then it came back and saying, well, what we need is appropriate technologies that the people can control themselves, and it's still not easy to implement, and I certainly believe that social enterprise can be a paradigm that help getting into that direction.
Thank you once again to Isabelle and to the entire panel. Thank you very much. Now we are approaching the very end of this fourth conference, 4 long days. It had to be so long with such a lot of excellent papers, excellent discussions. I will not summarize this panel. I will not summarize the conference, not only due to my incapacity to do so, but also because I will insist on an open dialogue in this area among scholars, excellent scholars from all parts of the world, and I will rather invite us all to continue this dialogue. For the young scholars, there'll be a chance already next year at attending the PhD summer school in Timisoara. The board of EMES has decided, together with colleagues from the university in Timisoara, that the next summer school will be there in very late June and early July next year. Also, I would like to invite Professor Ahn from South Korea to come and say a few words about the conference organized by our Southeast Asian colleagues next year.
Thank you. Well, my name is Dong-Gyu Ahn. I'm a professor of Hallem University in South Korea. It is my honor to be a part of EMES, and also it is my pleasure to announce that there will be a Asian version of EMES, as Kam-Tong mentioned, in 2014, which is next year. And Seoul, the capital city, will be held for 3 days conference, and the date is July 4th. Unfortunately, it's independent of the United States, but fortunately, it's a social enterprise week in Korea. So the date is almost fixed, and the spot is 1-day seminar in Seoul, and we move to Gangwon province, where we will host the Winter Olympic 2018. One of the subsessions is that social enterprise and social enterprise and Olympics. How do they relate to each other? How do they impact it? So your physical presence will be a great asset for the success of the meeting. So see you in Korea. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ahn. We'll most definitely meet in Korea next year. We are also in serious negotiations with our Finnish colleagues about hosting the next EMES conference. We are really exploring the possibilities. What is absolutely sure is that we will all meet again in 2 years, in 2015. But yet, there are still a few more things to be said. In fact, the other day, last night, we thanked the staff who made this conference possible, but we didn't thank our conference co-chairs. In fact, I would like the two conference co-chairs to come to the podium. Dennis Young, I know you are, when you get here it might all be over, but anyway, please come, and also Jacques Defourny, to say eventually a few words, not summarize the results, not summarize the panel, but just maybe a few remarks to goodbye and see you again. And Rathiu, you also wanted to give a few practical informations, right? Okay. Dennis? And thank you very much to the conference co-chairs.
Well, I just want to say it's been a great honor for us to do this, and it's been wonderful to work with Jacques and to invite me to be the co-chair. And this had really given us an opportunity to bring lots of Americans here, some of whom are still in the audience. And so all I want to say is Happy Independence Day. It's July 4th today.
Nothing really to add, but at least first to thank not only the staff of the Center for Social Economy, but all our students who are in fact pioneers. They are the first generation of the Master in Management Studies specialized in management of social enterprise. They had a white t-shirt. They were at your disposal all the time. And I think they told me this morning, it's incredible. They almost don't have to search for the literature. They know the face of all major authors, and they might send you emails for just electronic version of your books, or I don't know. And so thanks a lot for having, we felt like a whole family supporting that conference. And because I cannot avoid that, I think that it was great to end with thoughts about new frontiers. I repeat that I deeply believe that our major challenge now is to listen to the South and to make our work somehow useful, but maybe first to be enriched by the accumulated knowledge which is still under research in various countries of the world, which are still more than half of the humanity. So this is our challenge. And thank you for having come, of course.
Yeah. The final words will be Rocío's, please, and it should be because she is the continuation and the boss.
Thank you, Lars. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. I'm not going to, although it's not a practical matter, I wanted to thank you personally on my behalf and on behalf of the board, of the whole membership, and of the team. It's been really, really a pleasure to spend the last 4 days with you. Okay, a couple of things. So tomorrow, for those of you who are staying at ICSEM, please do not come to Sartilman on the 48th. There will be nothing. The meeting tomorrow of the ICSEM meeting, it's down where the first international forum was, so HEC, Rue Lubrex 14. Thank you. For those of you who are staying for the General Assembly, it will take place on the other room, the room in front of this one, so 204. The Best Paper Awards. We were supposed to announce a Best Paper Awards for researchers and for PhDs. It didn't work. I mean, the process didn't work. The award will eventually get there, but we're still collecting the suggestions, okay? So I mean, we're being very transparent. And we will email in the results to the winners and to everybody else, so everybody knows. I mean, it would have been very nice to have the ceremony here, but it will be in 2 years. And the last thing, oh yeah, not this year's results, of course. So, and then the last thing is actually, I don't know if any of you in the audience saw the Go Young DVDs that were in the exhibition area. Those are actually not to take away, they are for sale because it's a social enterprise actually who's doing audiovisual material for teaching. So if you accidentally, took them, make sure you get in touch with them. Because the idea is to sell them to libraries, actually. It's not just to professors, so it's a project that aims to sell that material to libraries so it can be widely used in universities, okay? So that's it. Thank you very much, and have a safe trip home. Thank you.